You think office politics is harmless, just coffee break chatter, whispered gossip, or who gets the corner desk. No, you're wrong. Office politics is a battlefield. And I learned that the hard way. In my world, survival wasn't about being the smartest or the most hardworking. It was about knowing when to stay silent, when to strike, and when to outsmart the ones sharpening their knives right behind your back. I thought I was prepared. I thought I could handle pressure, deadlines, even toxic coworkers. But nothing prepared me for the power play I walked into. Nothing prepared me for him. He stole my ideas. He stole my recognition. And when that wasn't enough, he tried to destroy my entire career. I was silenced in meetings, overlooked in promotions, blamed for mistakes I didn't make. They wanted me gone. But here's the thing. I don't break easily. So when they pushed me into a corner, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I watched. I learned. And I prepared. Because every game has its rules. And if you understand the rules, you can break them. They thought I was weak. They thought I would crumble. But the truth? I was building my strategy. And when the right moment came, I flipped their power play back on them. What happens next? Let's just say, their empire of lies collapsed faster than they ever imagined. Before I take you deeper into my story, I want you to imagine something. Imagine walking into work, your favorite blazer pressed, your coffee in hand, your head filled with ideas you stayed up all night preparing. You sit in the meeting room, heart racing, ready to finally shine. You pitch your idea. People nod. Your boss smiles. You feel seen. And then 1 week later, that same idea is presented by someone else. Word for word. Slide for slide. And everyone applauds for them. Not for you. Do you know that feeling? That hot sting in your chest? That silent scream in your throat, begging to shout, that was mine. But you can't. Because if you speak up, you risk being labeled as difficult, unprofessional, jealous. That was my life. Over and over. Until silence was no longer an option. The office was more than just desks and deadlines. It was a chessboard. And I wasn't the queen, at least not yet. I was just another pawn trying to move forward, trying not to get sacrificed. Every hallway conversation felt like a coded message. Every casual smile felt like a mask. Every compliment carried a shadow of manipulation. And behind all of it, Mark. Mark wasn't just ambitious. He was charming, smooth, magnetic. The kind of guy who knew exactly when to crack a joke, when to flatter the boss, when to lean back in his chair and pretend he didn't care, while carefully calculating every move. He wasn't just playing the game. He was the game. And I had become his favorite opponent. But unlike him, I didn't play dirty. Not at first. Until I realized if you don't fight back, you don't survive. So here's the story I'm about to tell you. It's not just about one office. Or one manipulative coworker. It's about betrayal disguised as teamwork. About loyalty tested by ambition. About how far someone will go to climb the ladder. And how much strength it takes to hold your ground when they try to cut you off. This is my story. Riley's story. The story of how one woman turned the tables on the most ruthless power play she had ever faced. And let me tell you, once you see how it ends, you'll never look at office politics the same way again. My name's Riley. And like a lot of you watching, I had big dreams. At 29, I thought I had life figured out. I had a decent resume, solid references, and a burning desire to finally prove myself in a corporate world that never seemed to slow down. When I got the offer from Sutton & Clark Consulting, I felt like I had won a golden ticket. Big name firm, high-rise office in downtown Chicago, the kind of company people bragged about working at on LinkedIn. For me, it was the next big step. On my first day, I remember riding the elevator up to the 32nd floor. My heart was pounding. I clutched my leather bag, silently rehearsing my introduction speech like it was a Broadway audition. Hi, I'm Riley. Project management. Excited to be here. Simple, right? But if you've ever started at a new job, you know the feeling. Every step feels like a test. The way you shake hands, the way you smile, even how you sip your coffee in the break room. It all feels like people are silently judging, calculating where you fit into their invisible hierarchy. The office itself was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river, rows of sleek desks with ergonomic chairs, a break room stocked with overpriced sparkling water, and of course, those infamous coffee machines that broke down at least twice a week. Everyone dressed the part. Men in tailored suits, women in blazers and sharp heels clicking across the marble floor. It was polished, competitive, intimidating. But beneath all that shine, I quickly sensed something else. The air was charged. People smiled, yes, but their eyes flickered with something sharper. Like every conversation had layers. I kept telling myself, stay focused, Riley. Do your work. Don't get caught up in office politics. Easier said than done. In the first week, I got to know my team. There was Claire, my direct manager. Late 40s, polished, always in control. She had that cool authority, never raised her voice, but you knew instantly when she was displeased. First, she seemed fair, even kind. She took me under her wing, introduced me around and told me, "You're going to do great here." Then there was Mark. The golden boy. Mid-30s, tall, charming. He wore confidence like it was custom-tailored. The kind of guy who made eye contact just long enough to make you feel important, before turning his attention elsewhere, leaving you craving his approval. Everyone seemed to like him, especially Claire. Jenna sat 2 desks away from me. She was quiet, reserved, but observant. The type who noticed when your shoelace was untied, or when someone rolled their eyes in a meeting. She didn't talk much, but when she did, it mattered. And finally, Paul. The jokester. Always with a sarcastic comment, always finding a way to make Mondays feel slightly less like torture. He wasn't the smartest guy in the room, but he had connections. People liked him because he never seemed to take anything seriously. This was my team. My new work family. At least that's what I thought. I'll admit it, I was ambitious. But not in the ruthless way some people are. I didn't dream of stepping on others to climb the ladder. What I wanted was simple respect. Recognition for the work I put in. The satisfaction of knowing that when I contributed, it mattered. I worked late nights that first month. I memorized client portfolios, studied every ongoing project, volunteered for extra tasks. I wanted to show them I belonged, and for a while it seemed to work. Claire praised me in one-on-ones. Paul joked that I was setting the bar too high. Even Jenna gave me a quiet smile once, which from her felt like a standing ovation. But then there was Mark. Mark never said it outright, but I could feel it, the competition. He'd glance at my notes during meetings, casually repeat my suggestions louder so they landed on Claire's ears, and flash me that smirk like, "Welcome to the game, rookie." Still, I brushed it off. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe it was just normal workplace dynamics. I didn't realize yet that this was just the opening move in his power play. Looking back, there were signs. The way Mark leaned in just a little too close when Claire was around, laughing at her jokes like they were the funniest thing in the world. The way he strategically skipped lunch with the group but always managed to bump into the senior partners in the lobby. The way he complimented my work, but only when no one else was around to hear it. And the way Claire's eyes started to shift in meetings toward him, not me. At the time I told myself, "Don't get paranoid, Riley. Just focus." But deep down, something in my gut whispered, "You're not just doing your job anymore. You're being played." And that's where the real story begins. Because behind every smile in that office was a strategy. Behind every compliment a calculation. And behind Mark's charming grin was a knife waiting for my back. I just didn't know how soon he'd use it. Every story of betrayal has a first crack. The moment when you realize things aren't what they seem. For me, that moment came in the 3rd week. It was a Monday morning team meeting. The kind where everyone gathered around the conference table, coffee in hand, pretending not to yawn. I had stayed up late the night before preparing a streamlined workflow idea for one of our clients. A simple adjustment to project timelines that could save both time and money. I explained it clearly, walked the team through the steps. Claire nodded, even said, "Good thinking, Riley. Let's consider this." I felt proud, seen, validated. But then, Friday came. Another meeting. And suddenly Mark was standing at the whiteboard, drawing diagrams that looked eerily familiar. My diagrams. My idea. He spoke with such confidence, such authority, like the words were born in his brain. He used phrases I had written in my draft. And the worst part? Claire clapped her hands and said, "Now that's the kind of initiative I want to see, Mark." The team nodded. Paul even whistled under his breath. Jenna's eyes flicked to me, quick, sharp, sympathetic. She knew. But I sat frozen. My chest burned, my fists clenched under the table. And yet, I stayed silent. Because in corporate America, there's a rule no one writes down. If you call out someone powerful without proof, you're the one who looks bad. That was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, little things piled up. Emails where I CC'd Claire with updates. Mark would forward them, rewording slightly, making it look like his contribution. Brainstorm sessions where my suggestions were ignored. Until Mark repeated them louder. Suddenly, people loved his creativity. Even casual conversations turned into subtle digs. "Oh, Riley's still learning the ropes," Mark would say with a charming smile. "Don't worry, she'll get there." It was death by 1,000 cuts. Nothing blatant enough to call out, but enough to bleed me dry slowly. I'd go home at night, staring at my laptop, replaying moments in my head, asking myself, did that really happen? Or am I imagining it? Gaslighting, even unintentional, has a way of making you doubt your own memory. And that was his power. Not just stealing my work, but making me question my own reality. Then came the client presentation. I had been assigned to lead it, my chance to finally shine. I spent nights rehearsing, perfecting every slide, memorizing every stat. The morning of, I walked in early, ready. 10 minutes before we were supposed to start, Mark pulled me aside. His voice low, casual. "Hey, Claire wants me to lead this one. You don't mind, do you?" I froze. "What?" "But this is my..." He smiled. That smooth, infuriating smile. "Don't worry, I'll make sure to credit your work." Spoiler, he didn't. I sat in that boardroom, heart pounding, as he delivered my presentation. Word for word. Slide for slide. And when the client praised the strategy, Claire leaned over and whispered, "Isn't Mark brilliant?" I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to call him out in front of everyone. But instead, I bit my lip until it bled. Because I knew if I exploded, I'd be the one labeled unprofessional, emotional, difficult. So I sat there invisible. And in that moment I realized this wasn't just about credit. This was war. A power play with one goal: to erase me. That night, I walked home through the city streets. Neon lights blurring through tears I refused to let fall. I replayed the meeting again and again, each time feeling more humiliated. I thought about quitting, about sending a resignation email and walking away from all of it. But then I remembered something my dad used to tell me. Never hand your enemy the victory they're trying to take from you. I wasn't ready to give Mark the satisfaction. So I dried my tears, opened my laptop and started planning. Because if he wanted a war, he just picked the wrong opponent. And that's when the game changed. From that moment forward, I wasn't just Riley, the new project manager. I was Riley, the strategist. And every move he made, I would be ready. They thought I was weak. They thought I was naive. But what they forgot is that I had been watching, listening, and documenting every move in this office. And now it was time to strike back. It was a Tuesday morning, a deceptively quiet one. The kind of morning where the office smelled like burnt coffee and toner ink, where the sound of keyboards filled the air. But beneath that mundane surface, something was about to erupt. Riley walked into the building with her tote bag slung over her shoulder. Inside that bag wasn't just her laptop. It was a carefully prepared dossier. Emails, printouts, and time-stamped notes. Evidence she had been quietly collecting over the past weeks. She could feel her pulse quicken. Her heels clicked against the polished floor tiles, echoing like a countdown clock. Every step reminded her. This is it. Today I take back my power. Carla, the office queen bee, had made Riley's life miserable. Backhanded compliments in meetings. Taking credit for Riley's work. Whispering rumors by the water cooler. And now, positioning herself as the one who deserved the upcoming promotion. A position Riley had bled for. Riley approached Carla's office. Through the glass walls she could see Carla laughing with two other colleagues, tossing her blonde curls back, radiating fake confidence. Riley knocked. "Oh, Riley, come in. We were just talking about how ambitious you've been lately." Her tone dripped with sarcasm. Riley smiled faintly. "Perfect. Keep underestimating me." The company had scheduled a board meeting that afternoon. Executives, department heads, even the CEO, everyone who mattered would be there. It was supposed to be Carla's stage, her moment to shine, to pitch her vision for the department. But Riley had a different plan. Inside the sleek glass-walled conference room, people shuffled papers and adjusted their chairs. The CEO, Mr. Dalton, sat at the head of the table, expression unreadable. Carla started her presentation with her usual flair. Animated gestures, confident voice, a deck filled with buzzwords. She was charming the room, weaving a story about how she had led the department through challenges and how her strategies had increased productivity. And that's when Riley stood up. "Excuse me, Mr. Dalton. If I may, I have some information that might change the context of this discussion." The room went silent. Heads turned. Carla's eyes widened, just for a moment before narrowing. "Riley, sweetie, maybe we should wait until after the meeting." "No, this can't wait." Riley pulled out a stack of neatly organized folders from her tote bag and placed them in front of each board member. "These are internal reports, emails, and timestamped project notes. They detail how I led the initiatives Carla is presenting as her own. Every chart, every metric, every success she's mentioned, those came from my work, not hers." The executives flipped through the folders. The sound of paper shuffling filled the tense air. Carla's smile faltered. This is ridiculous. She's lying. She's trying to sabotage me. If I'm lying, then perhaps you'd like to explain why your name doesn't appear in any of the original drafts, the meeting notes, or the submission logs." Gasps around the table. One executive raised his brow. "Carla, these emails, they're pretty clear." Carla's voice grew shrill, her composure cracking. "This is a setup. She forged these." But Riley didn't flinch. Instead, she calmly plugged her laptop into the projector. On the big screen flashed a trail of email threads with metadata, timestamps, and version histories, all showing Riley's authorship. And then, screenshots of Slack messages where Carla belittled Riley and bragged about taking the credit before anyone notices. The boardroom erupted in murmurs. "I didn't want it to come to this. I believed in teamwork. But when someone exploits the work of others, when someone manipulates and bullies their way up, it's not just unfair to me. It's toxic to the company. And I refused to stay silent." Silence. Then the CEO leaned forward. His voice was low but firm. "Carla, I think we've seen enough." Carla's face drained of color. She tried to speak, but no words came out. The once confident queen bee sat frozen in her chair. Her fingers trembled as she tried to close her laptop, but her hands shook too much. Everyone's eyes were on her. Not with admiration this time, but with disappointment, even disgust. "I always suspected something was off, but I didn't think it was this bad." Carla's lip quivered. She looked at Riley, hatred mixed with desperation. "You'll regret this." But Riley just stared back, calm and unshaken. "No, Carla. The only regret here is yours." After the meeting, as Carla stormed out of the office, her heels clacking like gunshots on the tile floor, Riley remained behind. The CEO approached her. "CEO Dalton. Riley, you showed courage today. It takes guts to stand up to manipulation like that. The board will need to discuss next steps, but you've made your case clear." For the first time in weeks, Riley exhaled. The crushing weight that had been on her chest lifted. She wasn't just surviving office politics anymore. She had mastered it. She had played the power game and won. In the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my voice, my worth, and showing them that power isn't about who shouts the loudest. It's about who stands firm when the storm hits. The meeting was over. The evidence was out. Carla's empire of lies collapsed in a single afternoon. But the story didn't end there. Because after every storm, there's always the quiet, the aftermath. And in that quiet, the real lessons begin to surface. The next morning, the atmosphere in the office was different. Usually, the open-plan floor buzzed with chatter, people gossiping about TV shows, the latest sales numbers, or weekend plans. But that day, it was hushed. Eyes darted toward Riley as she walked in. Some smiled faintly. Others looked guilty, ashamed even. The ones who had laughed at Carla's jokes when she mocked Riley now couldn't meet her gaze. Riley sat at her desk, opened her laptop and tried to breathe normally. But she could feel the shift. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't the pushover, the target, or the office scapegoat. She had become something else. Colleague number 1, whispering as she passed, "Good job yesterday, Riley. Really brave." Colleague number 2 from the copy machine, We all knew Carla was, well, Carla. But nobody had the guts to stand up. You did. Those words didn't feel like flattery. They felt like relief, like the office itself had exhaled. By noon the news had spread. Carla had been officially removed from the promotion shortlist. HR had opened an investigation into her conduct. Rumors said she had been escorted out by security later that day to take some personal time. Riley overheard two coworkers whispering near the break room. Coworker A. She was screaming in Dalton's office saying it was all a setup. Coworker B. Doesn't matter. Once the CEO sees screenshots, timestamps, and Slack logs, there's no coming back. Riley didn't smile at Carla's downfall. Instead, she felt complicated. There was satisfaction, yes, but also a pang of empathy. Carla had built her career on manipulation, on taking shortcuts, on tearing others down. And in the end, that foundation crumbled beneath her. For a moment, I wondered if Carla had ever stopped to think about the damage she caused. Or if she was so blinded by ambition that she couldn't see the wreckage she left behind. Either way, her story had reached its end. That Friday, Mr. Dalton called Riley into his office. His tone was different now, less formal, almost warm. CEO Dalton. Riley, the board was impressed. Not just with your work, but with your courage. It's rare to find someone who can keep their composure under pressure and still speak the truth. He paused, folding his hands. We'd like you to take the lead on the new expansion project. It's a big responsibility, but I think you've earned it. Riley felt her throat tighten. She had expected maybe recognition, maybe a thank you. But this was more. This was validation not just of her work but of her character. Riley softly, thank you, sir. I won't let you down. CEO Dalton nodding, I know you won't. As she left his office, Riley's steps felt lighter. The same hallway where she used to keep her head down, avoiding Carla's glare, now felt like her own runway. Later that day in the cafeteria, one of the junior analysts, a shy young man named Evan, sat across from Riley. Evan nervously, I just wanted to say thanks. Carla made my first months here really tough. She told me my ideas were stupid. I almost quit. But after what you did, I think maybe it's worth staying. Riley blinked, surprised. She hadn't realized the ripple effect of standing up for herself. She hadn't just defended her own dignity. She had given others permission to hope. Riley, gentle smile, don't let people like Carla define your worth. Believe me, it's not easy, but it's worth it. Evan smiled a little stronger than before. That evening, Riley sat at her desk, the office now dim and quiet. The city lights flickered outside the glass windows. She thought about the journey, the whispers, the sabotage, the late nights doing the real work while someone else took the credit. And she thought about the moment she decided not to stay silent. Narrator, Riley's reflective voice. Office politics will never disappear. There will always be Carlas in the world, people who claw their way up by stepping on others. But power isn't about stealing credit. It's about integrity. About standing firm when the easy option is silence. She closed her laptop. What I learned is simple. In the game of power play, manipulation might win for a season. But truth always outlasts the lie. The moral wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about winning the promotion. It was about survival, resilience, and dignity. If you've ever been in my shoes, undermined, belittled, pushed to the corner, remember this, your voice matters. Your work matters. And the moment you decide to stand, you shift the balance of power. The real power play isn't about crushing others. It's about refusing to be crushed yourself. When I walked into that office on my first day, I never imagined the battles I would fight, or the lies I would have to expose. But sometimes life throws you into a storm, not to destroy you, but to show you how strong you really are. The office looked different now. Not because the furniture had changed or the carpet had been replaced. No, it looked different because Riley herself had changed. The cubicles, once suffocating with tension and whispered gossip, now felt like a battlefield she had crossed and conquered. I realized something after all of this, Riley thought as she packed up her desk one evening. We don't get to choose the politics of our workplace, but we do get to choose how we respond to it. And sometimes choosing to speak up, choosing to shine a light on the darkness, is the most radical act of survival. Over the following weeks, Riley noticed subtle shifts. Team meetings were calmer. People actually gave credit where credit was due. The younger staff, those who had once looked nervous, scribbling notes in silence, now spoke up more. One afternoon, a quiet designer named Mariah tapped Riley on the shoulder. "Mariah, softly, thanks for what you did. I didn't realize how much I needed to see someone actually stand up. It's made me braver too." Riley smiled. It wasn't about glory. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about creating a space where people no longer had to walk on eggshells, waiting for Carla's next move. Power plays will always exist. People will try to manipulate, to dominate, to silence others. But what I've learned is that power without integrity is temporary. It collapses under the weight of its own deceit. True power is built on truth, on courage, on the willingness to stand, even when your voice shakes, even when the odds are stacked against you. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in deeply, letting the truth settle in her chest. The camera slowly zooms closer to Riley as her voice shifts. Not just as a character in the story, but as someone reaching directly to the viewer. Riley, to audience almost confessional. Maybe you've faced your own Carla. Maybe you've been in a job where your efforts were dismissed, your ideas stolen, your worth questioned. So, I want you to remember this story. Because it's not just my story, it could be yours too. And if you're sitting there right now debating whether to stay silent or to speak out, know this: silence only protects the one in power. But truth? Truth protects everyone else. Her eyes narrow slightly, a spark of determination. So the next time you feel powerless in the face of manipulation, remember, you have more strength than you think. You just need to choose the moment to unleash it. The background music swells, a mix of dramatic piano and subtle strings, building tension one last time. Riley, voice firm, direct to camera. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever faced office politics, if you've ever had to fight for your place, or if you've ever wondered whether truth really matters, then I want to hear your story. Share it in the comments below. Let's make this more than just a video. Let's make it a conversation. Because the more we talk about toxic workplaces, the less power they have over us. She leans forward slightly, voice lowering for emphasis. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon. Because stories like these deserve to be told, and you deserve to be heard. Pause. Then a small smile. After all, power plays are only as strong as the silence around them. And here we refuse to stay silent. The dust had settled. The storm had passed. And yet the echoes of that day still lingered in my mind. Not in fear but in clarity. Because once you face the truth, once you stop running from it, nothing ever looks the same again. It was a Friday evening when Riley finally stayed late. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. The office was quiet, the hum of fluorescent lights the only soundtrack. She walked past the empty cubicles, the conference room where the showdown had happened, the glass doors that once felt like barriers. Each space was no longer a reminder of pain. It was a reminder of survival. She stopped by the large window overlooking the city. The skyline sparkled with thousands of tiny lights, each one a story, each one a battle someone else was fighting. Carla's downfall wasn't just about me winning. It was about the office learning that deception has an expiration date. And it was about me learning that silence is the sharpest weapon someone can use against you. But once you take that weapon back, they lose their grip. On her way out, Riley found a small note on her desk. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was neat. "Thank you for speaking up. You probably don't realize it, but you changed the way I see myself at work." A colleague. Riley held the note for a long moment. A smile touched her lips. She didn't know who wrote it, but she didn't need to. That one anonymous thank you meant more than any award. Because in the end, true leadership isn't about titles. It's about impact. So here's what I want you to take away from my story. Never underestimate your worth. Never allow someone else's ambition to erase your contribution. And never let fear decide your silence. In the world of office politics, the loudest person isn't always the most powerful. Sometimes the quiet one, the one who observes, who gathers, who waits, can be the one who changes everything with a single truth. She pauses, almost as if making eye contact with the audience. That truth could be yours. The memory of Carla's words, "You'll regret this," still lingered, but Riley smiled to herself now. No regrets. No shame. Only growth. I didn't win because I crushed Carla. I won because I refused to let her crush me. And that's the lesson I'll carry with me long after the lights in this office go dark. The scene fades to black and white, Riley's voice crisp and clear. Now it's your turn. Have you ever faced a Carla in your workplace? Or maybe even in your personal life? Someone who tried to silence you, steal your credit, or play their power game at your expense? Tell me your story in the comments. Because these aren't just my battles, they're battles so many of us fight in silence. And the more we share, the stronger we all become. She leans forward slightly, her voice both tender and fierce. Remember this: power play is inevitable. But whether it defines you, or whether you rise above it, that choice will always be yours. Soft piano music fades in. Riley's silhouette walks out of the office for the last time that week, shoulders straighter, head higher. So stand tall. Speak your truth. And never ever forget, the game only ends when you stop playing. Until then, keep your power where it belongs, in your hands. Fade to black.